What is up, everybody? It is late. It is like 9:30 at night, and we are starting the upper cabinets. So I'm going to try to get some cutting tonight on the face frames done. But yeah, that's how this side gig, part-time job thing works. But let's get to cutting now. So what I'm doing here may seem redundant, but it's worth the few extra steps, and that is ripping your material. Well, first, rough cutting your material to manageable sizes. In a small shop like this, I can't run a 10-foot board through the table saw because I don't have enough room. So I break the material down into rough lengths, then I rip it to a width larger than the final dimension. And on face frames, this isn't as critical, but especially on doors, you really need super straight boards. But on the face frames, we're going to go ahead and do it because the straighter the lumber we have, the easier it is going to be to build something and the better finished product that we're going to get. So what I'll do is do a rough rip that is like 3/16 bigger than what I need. And then I'll take it over to the jointer and joint one of those edges, and then come back to the table saw and rip it to the final width. And this is just so if the board has any tension in it, and after I cut it, that tension releases. So now the board has a bow in it, or a cup, or a crown, whatever you want to say. But it's not good, so we run it through the joiner, get it straight, and then that little 1/8 inch of material we're removing off of the piece isn't going to cause the board to change anymore. So yeah, that's just an extra little step. Yeah, it takes a little more time, but in the end you get better results, and it helps you in the long run. That way you're not trying to put together boards that aren't straight. It's just make it straight. Just make it straight. Just make it straight. Okay, so I did not show the process of building these face frames. I kind of covered that in the last episode when I built the face frames for the base cabinets. Pretty much the same thing, so I'll leave a link here and below in the description for you to go check out that episode if you're interested. It's just cutting boards to length and using pocket hole screws, so it's not too complicated. But like I said, if you want to see how I build face frames, check out my last video. But in this video, I really wanted to focus on how I construct the upper cabinets, so I'm going to show you that process now. Let's get back into it. Alright, so we've got all of the face frames done for the uppers except the corner cabinet. I'm going to build that last. So we're going to start building the upper cabinets, and I'll show you the process that I use to go about building this. So let's get to building some boxes. Alright, so the first thing I do building upper boxes is cut all of the side pieces to their final lengths. And you know, we have multiple cabinets that are having the same height, so I just do one cross cut across a whole sheet of plywood. We can get 4 sides out of each one, so then we'll take it to the table saw, rip everything down to their final widths, and then we'll go back and measure for the bottom and the tops. Now I've labeled on each of the pieces what piece is going to go where. So that way on the back of every piece I'll know, okay, this is a bottom piece, so I need to cut that to length, or this is a side piece, so that's ready to go and cut the dados in. So labeling keeps everything organized, especially when you have a bunch of things going on, a bunch of cuts going on. So we've got all the sides ripped down and cut to length. Now it's time to take it over to the table saw and put a dado on each piece, top and bottom. And those will be set so that the face frame, when it connects with the bottom and the top, is a 1/16 above both the bottom and the top of the box. So we're going to do that, and then we'll assemble all the boxes. We've got our sides ripped, cut to length, and our two dados made into each. Now we need to figure out the top and bottom. So the way we're going to do that is put our side on the face frame where we want it to go. In this case, it'll be just a hair under flush with the side of the face frame. We will mark with our pencil. Do the same thing on that side. So putting it flush here, made the mark, flip it over and do the same. Now I'm just taking a clamp, putting it there, so then I could butt my tape measure, and we have 29 and 3/16. So we're going to set our saw up for 29 and 3/16. And so I'm going to cut 4 of those pieces, 2 tops and 2 bottoms for each of these cabinets. They are identical widths, one stacks on top of the other, and then I will show you the assembly process. So let's cut those. I've drilled some pocket holes, as you can see here and on the side panels. Now in this particular cabinet, I haven't put pocket holes in the bottom half and also the bottom piece because these will be somewhat visible. They're not show faces, but it's going against a refrigerator, which doesn't fit quite tight against it, so you can see around there. It'll be stained and finished, so it'll blend in with the rest of the project, but I just don't want any ugly big pocket holes in the way. So we will just clamp that portion down, and really the pocket holes are only there to clamp the face frame until the glue sets up, because once the glue cures, that's really the strength holding to get the face frame to the cabinet itself. So we're going to assemble this. So now we're going to put glue in each of the grooves. And then making sure our pocket holes are all facing the same direction. We're going to slide our piece into the dado here. And nail it in. And now time to attach the face frame. And that's just a matter of getting this the same on both sides, overhang, as well as flushing out the top and bottom, and then gluing and screwing it on. It for assembling the cabinet box. So yeah, we're gonna build the rest of the cabinet boxes, and then we'll start adding all the backs, and I'll show you the cleat system that we're gonna use for these cabinets. Alright, so that is, am I recording? Yeah, so this is probably almost more than half of the upper cabinets completed. So yeah, we got the backs on. That is my dad in the shot. This kitchen is for my mother and father. As you saw my dad in the video helping out. This is his shop. Actually, I work out of it. Any projects I do for my business is out of this shop. So really thankful and grateful for him and providing that. As of right now, I don't have a space yet to set up my own shop. So yeah, just running out of my dad's right now. So big shout out to him, and he's helping out with these cabinets. So yeah. Alright, so we've assembled pretty much all of the upper cabinets. And now we are going to put on the French cleats on the backs of all of them. Now this kitchen has 2 rows of upper cabinet, so there's 1 row, then there's a smaller row above that. The bottom row is going to have a French cleat along the top, and then the row that sits on top of that is just going to have that same thickness of material just added onto the back, and we will just use some screws to attach that to the wall. So a couple reasons I use a French cleat. If you don't know what that is, let me show you real quick. So a French cleat basically works like this. You take a piece of wood. Let's say for a second the cabinet is the wall. You're going to take a piece of wood with a miter ripped onto it. You're going to attach it to the wall. Then to your cabinet you're going to attach another piece with that same miter ripped along the edge of it, with the short point touching the cabinet. And so when you go to set the cabinet on the wall, it rests into that groove. Then you put a couple screws just to lock it in place to keep it from moving. A couple reasons why I like to use the French cleat. Number 1, makes installing the upper cabinets very, very easy compared to having someone needing to hold the cabinet right where it is, getting a screw in it, and then trying to level it and shim it out. This way you just mark a level line across the whole wall in relation to where you want the cabinet and where your French cleat is on the back of your cabinet. Then you go ahead and throw up all your cleats onto the wall. Then just hang the cabinets, real easy. Then you just shoot a few screws into the cabinet, into the wall, just to keep it from moving. And then the uppers will just stack on top of that. And yeah, so it makes the installation a lot easier. I guess it is a little more time consuming on the production side of it, but I think it's worth it for install to save the headache. We're basically just going to rip down a bunch of strips and put a miter on it, then cut them to length for each of the first row cabinets, and we're going to glue it to the back of this and screw it so it'll be plenty strong, and then we'll have some extra material to attach to the wall when we're ready to install. Pieces, I just rip them down square first and then put the miter on them. It's a little more efficient that way, because after you rip a long point, after you rip a miter on it, now you got an edge with a miter on it. So either way, you kind of need to rip it square first and then do it. Plus with this saw, it tilts to the right, I guess. Most saws nowadays tilt away from the fence. This tilts towards the fence. This is an older saw, so I feel a little safer just running, taking a small amount of material off of it, rather than running a wider board through it. So yeah, we're going to rip everything to width first, then we'll come back and rip a 45 right on the edge of the piece. just want to say, you may notice there's no riving knife anymore on the table saw. That is because this is an older saw, like I said before, and there isn't really a pivoting. I can't put an actual riving knife on the back of it. I don't have one. The dust collection thing doubles as that, but when you're cutting at a 45, this really is heavy and flops around, and it's just not, and plus you can't guide the piece through once you get it up to the fence, so there's no riving knife on the saw. If you're doing this and you don't know, and I think it's worth saying, even if you do know, be extra cautious when you don't have a riving knife on the saw. That is because the wood, if it moves and gets caught on the back side of the blade, it could throw it back at you. Now, cutting at an angle, the blade is kind of, that's kind of hard for that to happen, because the blade is literally holding the wood down through the cut. And this saw's, I think, only a 1 horsepower saw, so it's not like a 3 or 4 horsepower table saw, but still, keep that in mind. Always keep your riving knife on if you can, and if you have to take it off, be super careful with it. I know when I first started out, I didn't realize the dangers of it and what could happen. I knew such thing of kickback of the board binding and coming backwards, but I didn't know the fact that the board can actually twist and be thrown back at you, and at the same time, your hand, while that motion happens, is going to get caught into the blade. All that nasty stuff, just to say, be safe. Table saw is very dangerous, but as long as you're safe and you respect it, everything will be okay. So let's get back to cutting. Maybe wondering, what about the gap that's going to be in the back of the cabinet? So every upper cabinet is going to have a finished panel on the side of it, or it'll be butted into another cabinet, so you won't see that gap behind it. But anywhere there's an exposed cabinet face, there is going to be a panel that comes and will cover this gap. So the only reason I'm really stapling this is just to hold it in while I screw it. That way it doesn't want to move all over the place. Alright, so that's the basic gist of it. So if this piece was mounted on the wall here, we just slide up to the cabinet like that and hold it on there. So that's going to do it for this week's episode. We got all of the upper cabinets pretty much done. Got a couple more I still got to work on, but it's pretty much the same principles as here. So if you got anything out of this week's video, if you learned something, if you have knowledge you want to share, please feel free to comment in the comment section below. Would love to hear from you guys, love to have a conversation. I love to kind of spread some knowledge out for people if it's useful, if you learned something. If you found this video entertaining, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Helps out the channel a lot. It lets me know that you guys are enjoying this content. Feel free to share it and all that good stuff. Next week we're going to be working on the drawers for this kitchen, so stay tuned for that. Super excited that this kitchen is rolling along. And then beyond from the drawers, we'll have all of the doors and finished panels, and we'll pretty much be done and ready to install these. So super excited to wrap this project up. It's coming along. We're probably about halfway done. So yeah. So hope you have a great week. See you next week. And don't forget to get out there and build something. There's no greater feeling than making something from just a couple of pieces of wood and looking back at your work and saying, wow, I created that. So yeah, we'll see you next week. Peace out.